If there is a trade that investors could perhaps kick the tires on going into Q4,
Right.
going into an environment where a lot of retailers even have looked at back to school shopping and said, all right, this is giving us a little bit of inclination to believe that we're going to see a strong holiday shopping period. Is there anything that investors could be keeping an eye on or a top trade going into Q4?
Well, I think you raised a good point there, Brad. I think any of the consumer stocks going into the third quarter prints that we're going to see in GDP probably will get a good bounce. And if you make the bet that the Fed will stand pat, then those will be good places to put money. My own personal bias on a lot of the trades is on the short side right now. For example, bonds are starting to get overbought. We've seen that move yesterday from the JOLTS data and what we'll probably see here. So there'll be, in any of the bond ETFs, there'll be a good short position you could do there. And if you look out over the horizon, 3-6 months, you could probably put on a good short position in anything around the housing market right now. Housing will get weaker, especially if interest rates get up higher than they are. Talk about what's going to be the impact of students having to repay their loans. There's going to be less money in the system. Savings have come down pretty substantially since just after COVID ended. So there's not going to be a lot of money to be put into the housing market, especially as things stay a little bit more expensive and rates are still high.
And Keith, we are still seeing a lot of people being defensive right now until they get a bit more certainty. But then, of course, you also had Grayscale's win over there with the SEC, perhaps lifting some appetite for some riskier assets. What's your take on sort of moving into some of these riskier assets? Well, it's still very early days for what happens next with Grayscale's spot Bitcoin ETF.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's an interesting situation. I think broadly speaking, Rochelle, when you look at the digital assets and crypto market, which is what we play in at BloxCross, mostly in Latin America right now, is that we're still very early days. What I think is instructive about some of the recent developments and judgments that we've seen, especially yesterday with Grayscale, is that cryptocurrencies, digital assets are here to stay. The recent kind of right sizing of the market that we've seen since 2018 and the recent crypto winter and the failure of FTX, those are very positive for the marketplaces. And so there's going to be excellent opportunities both in the private markets and eventually in the public markets to invest in digital assets companies. I would not necessarily suggest that people should be throwing a lot of capital into the very risky and speculative tokens, a lot of them that you see out there. But try to look at things like a Bitcoin and Ethereum, some of the other tokens that actually underpin real business models and developments that are going to happen on the blockchain and in other areas. Those would be the appropriate places to put. And some people would deem those as risky bets, and maybe they are a little bit more volatile than buying a basket of 50 stocks in the Fortune 50. But those would be good opportunities to take some of your discretionary cash, put them into those situations, and watch them appreciate. Because I obviously I'm a big believer that blockchain technologies, cryptocurrencies, digital assets, and all the innovation that comes along with that will accelerate dramatically in the next 3 to 5 years.
And we'll certainly be watching all of that. And of course, everyone, do your homework before you decide, which of these crypto assets to invest in. I do appreciate you joining us this morning. Keith Bliss, BloxCross Global Head of Markets and Strategy. Thank you for your time this morning.
My pleasure.